Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Cosplay Crunch. Each week, we sit down and talk about all things cosplay, including personal experiences, useful tips and advice, horror stories and hot takes, and sometimes the latest news and drama. I am your host, Savage Cosplay with a Z. And this week on the podcast, we have the incredibly talented Feelsbender AKA Sarah. Welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy that you finally have been able to come on. I say finally, you were always in the plan from the inception, and you know this because I reached out to you like at this point months ago. But we've had to wait through the season to get you on here just because of how I scheduled everything. But I'm so happy you're here.
Absolutely, time works at its own pace, it moves as it goes. Time, despite my grievances, will move as quickly as it wants to. So we're here, and I'm super excited to be here and have a little chit chat.
Time does move fast. I feel like I was just starting the first episode of this podcast like literally yesterday, and we're already through all the way to this is episode 12, I think. Yeah, it's crazy.
Moving fast.
I
That's
don't
awesome.
understand. Yeah, it's been very, I'd say, chill for the most part. There were some growing pains and bumps, and there are still some things I'm like working through, but it's going okay, I think.
But
so
hey, it's
far.
a work in progress. I think you're honestly, I think you're doing great so far. And the more you do it, the more you're gonna be like
great,
a little
sweetie.
polish here, a little polish there, easy.
No, I'm so happy you're here. I want to talk about you, obviously, but I want to specifically talk about the fact that you are the first cosplay guest on the podcast that is not from Texas. You are the first one. I know. Did you realize that?
I realized that just now. Hello from Chicago.
I think it's so funny because I was like thinking to myself, I was like, okay, I want to branch out and get cosplayers from all over. However, I knew a lot of my friends just naturally, because I grew up in Texas, are from Texas. So like for me, if comfort wise, getting some people on here to start off the podcast with that were people I've known for a long time, it was easy to do that way. But I will say that like even in that group, you were identified as a number one because, well, I met you so long ago, but also I lived in Chicago for that bit. And I was like, yeah, we have to get some diversity, not only from a cultural background perspective, but also from a geographic perspective on here.
I am here for you, baby. Let's
go. So did you always live in Chicago or Chicago area?
Yeah, I always lived in the Chicago area. I grew up in the northern burbs. I moved out briefly to San Francisco, wasn't my cup of tea, and then I moved back. And I'm pretty sure this is kind of where I'm gonna be for the rest of my time. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you grew up in Chicago area then?
I did, yes.
Like from a kid. So what was your entrance into cosplay and like the convention scene like in Chicagoland? Because I think that would probably like, what was your first convention that you went to?
I believe it was Anime Central 2008. I was in middle school. I had recently made some really cool friends who also really liked anime, and then we all cosplayed from Naruto for Halloween together. Halloween of 7th grade. And then going into 8th grade, we were all like, forget Halloween. What if we go to a convention? And we were all like, wait, that's a thing? So one of our friends tracked down that Anime Central has been a con that's been going on for a while now. And we finally made the pilgrimage with your parental chaperones coming with us to just kind of explore the con. And it was a very fun time going to a convention for the first time as a wee child. It was eye-opening, a culture shock, but a beautiful door open to a bunch of amazing things.
So seventh middle school age Naruto group at ACEN.
Yes.
Wait, so was ACEN a really big convention back in 2008, or was it smaller?
Central? Yeah, I think Anime Central was back then people were keeping count of attendance, and ACEN was in the top 5 or top 10 most attended anime cons in North America, I think, all the way back then. That's how big ACEN was.
Even back then it was really big. Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's crazy. So you started off going to a pretty big convention. You didn't start with small with a baby con.
Correct. I've been going to ACEN basically my whole cosplay career, and it's always been that really, really big convention. Yeah.
Do you go every year? Do you try to go every year?
I made a promise, like silly little Sarah's I'm gonna go to ACEN every year no matter what. Even when I was graduating college, my commencement was the same weekend as ACEN. So I went to ACEN with my cap and gown, drove to
No.
Indiana to do commencement with my cap and gown, walked it, did a little bit of hanging out with people, and then immediately came back to Chicago and continued going to con because that's how much I loved ACEN. And I've just kind of always been attending it. And I think the one time I did not attend it in any capacity was height of the pandemic, was 2020 ACEN, because 2020 ACEN did not happen. Because
Gotcha.
2020 Katsu slash C2E2 were the last cons to have happened, and then ACEN was canceled after that.
So I actually went to the C2E2 right before COVID started officially in the US, I'd say. Because I went to KatsuCon 2020 and I was living in Chicago. I was living in River North in Chicago, like downtown, in a
Yeah,
studio apartment, making my KatsuCon cosplays. And then I went to C2E2 for the very first time in March of 2020. And then right after that, like I would say literally
like the
like
week after.
the week after, it was like, oh, we're locking it down. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to go fly home and live in Houston for the next, I don't know, however many, at the time, it was weeks. That
Yeah.
turned into months. No, so ASEN, the only year it didn't happen was during COVID. So I guess whenever there were no conventions happening. Oh, I want to get into like all of the Illinois Midwest convention scene later on because I think there's a lot of information that needs to be shared with the listeners because
Yeah.
I actually want to know too. But we're gonna pull that on pause, circle back to it. Was the Naruto cosplay that you made, was that, did you make that costume, or did you buy it, or where did
I
that come from?
did. So, 6th grade and 7th grade, we had to take home ec classes, and you can either do the sewing course or the cooking
Hmm.
course. And I'm like, I want to do the sewing course. And then that's kind of like how I got my hands into like sewing, and then I made my friends, and then we're like, let's do Halloween stuff together. And I cosplayed little old Sakura Haruno with my hand-picked fabrics, with my really crappy, very gapped satin stitch with the little circles on her outfit. But everything was lovingly made, and I was so proud of that cosplay.
Oh my god, you know what I just thought of? This is so random. Gapped Satin Stitch could be a cosplay name.
You're right, though. You're right. Absolutely. It's up for grabs. Whoever wants to take it, I bless you.
So you started making your costumes at the gate from when you basically first started cosplaying then.
Yeah. Yeah, I had
That's crazy.
found a new love for crafting and sewing just because it's like I never took proper like patterning classes, so like all of my cosplays were literally
Hmm.
drafted on my body with like pins shoved everywhere. And it's just been really really amazing to see, hey, I can make that. And I did make it. It's really cool.
There are still a lot of, I mean, for some things like with armor and stuff, I'll still wrap myself in duct tape and like pattern
Absolutely.
out the pieces on my body.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, for sewing I'll generally start with like a pattern, but or at least something that's like, a real commercial thing, not just like putting muslin around my body. But hey, it's draping is technically that too, so it's valid.
I'm pretty decent at
Uh,
draping. Understanding patterns and pattern making, absolutely not. Over the head.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Speaking of patterns, oh my god, wait. I don't have it over here right now. But I got a pattern from a friend yesterday who works in a historical costuming, like costume department, theater department for a college. She gives me this pattern. It's a historical vintage pattern, probably from like 1930 or 40.
Oh wow.
And it comes in one size. And the pattern itself, when you open it, it's each pattern piece is not marked to what the actual pattern is. Like the pattern pieces don't have numbers, they're just shapes, and they're already all cut out for you. And but there's no marks to tell what anything is.
So you
And
gotta
then
puzzle
also
that
it's one
together.
size. No, literally, you have to puzzle together, and it's one size, so you have to grade it up or down yourself. Like you have to know how to pattern grade, because otherwise you can't use it.
Yeah, I've watched a fair number of like historical like dressmakers like use patterns like that, and I watch them grade it in real time, and I'm just kind of like, wow, that must be great having that like little fountain of knowledge of knowing how to grade patterns, because I think that's a really cool talent that people have. Yeah.
No, it's crazy. I want to use this pattern as an inspo for Lucifer from Has Been Hotel, but I also can't just use the pattern though because it's literally like 10 sizes too small for me. And I'm not even
Oh.
being dramatic. I think the commercial pattern size is like a 32. And
Mhm.
they don't even make men's jackets in a size 32 anymore. That doesn't exist. So this is a 32 and I'm a 40 like 6 or something.
Yeah.
Like that's the difference. It's not working. Anyway, enough about that. So I wanted to go back not quite as far as your start with cosplay in ACEN, but I do want to talk about how we met, which was through RWBY.
Honestly, it's a very fond place in my heart. I still look back at those photos of us in the alleyway and I'm like, man, we looked so good.
Those okay, for anyone that doesn't know, Ruby was is it still running or is it canceled? Is it done?
I think last I checked when it was announced that they were shutting down, I think they were trying to find someone to pick it up, but I don't know if Ruby is like dead or if someone has been able to swoop it from the fires of hell and save it to keep it going. So I genuinely don't know.
So that's kind of sad though, considering we were like in the Ruby fandom and we stand, and then now we don't even know what's happened to it anymore. That kind of tells the
Yeah.
story of like,
The rise
doesn't
and
it?
fall. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's
Yeah.
like at one point in our lives, we were very much obsessed with Ruby, and that was kind of like everything we focused on. But then, time went on, interests change, and now it's just kind of like Rooster Teeth is shutting down? What's happening with Ruby? So it's just kind of like
Yeah, no,
a little bit of osmosis here and there.
no, literally. So we met at Rooster Teeth convention, RTX, Rooster Teeth Expo. I think actually was the name RTX. That would make more sense. Rooster Teeth Expo in Austin, Texas, in 2016 for the first time through mutual friends for a RWBY villains group, which is what you were mentioning before.
Yes.
And that photo shoot, first of all, I remember sweating a lot because that was hot.
It was so hot. I
It
can't do
was this
constant
middle of
checks. It's so
summer.
hot. Yeah.
It was middle of summer in Austin. I just remember sweating a ton. And also, I'm pretty sure there's a photo of me on the ground in the alleyway.
I feel
Like on the
Teresa
ground
has
as in
that
like
photo.
I think I'm like literally doing a push-up or something and someone's sitting on top of me.
I
I
know
don't
the
know.
exact
I don't
photos you're talking
remember.
about. I know the exact photos you're talking about. I'll have to go dig after this, absolutely. But I know what photos you're
Yeah,
talking
no.
about.
Well, I remember the ones that we did more specifically where I was Mercury and you were Emerald and you were on my shoulders and we were inside in air conditioning and those were
Yes.
really cute.
Those were so cute.
But
I love them so much.
how did you even get into RWBY in the first place? Like I want to hear the story because I don't think I've ever asked you before and I think it's important to bring up these relics of the past.
Absolutely. So I remember being in Brian's apartment in college when
Mhm.
the original 4 trailers for the 4 girlies came out, and it's like one by one by one, and you start to see the story unfold, who these characters are in the moon and things, and I just started like watching it. I think I genuinely cannot remember if there was a friend of mine who introduced me to it or I found it on my own, but I remember I started watching it and then eventually bullied Brian into watching it. And I just kind of kept with it ever since, for like a short amount of time. And that's kind of how I kind of came to know everyone and meet everyone. But it's just like I think I stumbled upon it or someone showed me. But it became my personality real quick though.
No, look, for me, I literally didn't even know what Ruby was. I'd never heard of it before in my life. And then I was at a convention and I met one of our mutual friends at the time who said, "Hey, you should cosplay as Mercury Black from Ruby." And I'm like, "What is that?" And she was like, "Go watch it. It's on Rooster Teeth." And I'm like, "What is that?" So I literally just went because someone told me to cosplay it, went and looked it up, and I started watching. I was like, "Okay, actually, this is kind of cool." And also, actually, that was the very first cosplay group I was ever a part of. Not the one we did in 2016, but before that at
Hmm.
San Japan 2015, that was the first cosplay group I'd ever been a part of. And I was like, oh my God, these cosplayers that have been doing this for so long are inviting me, a no one, to do a cosplay group. This is the pinnacle of fame and success. I'm done. And that was also when I didn't really know what I was doing very much. I could sew and I could like barely do armor, but it was very baby. So by the time I wore that costume again with you, it had already been over a year old. The costume
Mm-hmm.
itself had been over a year old. But like, so at that point I was already kind of like, oh my God, I could do this 10 times better even a year later. But I digress. It was such a fun time, and I'm just kind of shocked that Rooster Teeth in general is just like gone because they were so big.
They were so big. They were so big. And it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy to be in this reality because it's like you think that they're going to be around forever, and suddenly they're not. Like it, the news was just very much out of the blue. When
Yeah.
it was announced that they were closing, so it's kind of crazy.
Did they I mean, I say it's kind of it's crazy and unexpected, which I think it is, but at the same time, I will say that my interest for RWBY as a show, even like we said, as being a really big fan, definitely declined, and I stopped watching it at a certain point. I don't really know why. I think part of it was behind a paywall. I think you had to pay for like a subscription to watch it
You did,
on like their website, I
yeah.
think. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that anymore. But then I stopped watching it, and then I don't really know of any other content that they really were producing at the time that piqued my interest. So I
Hmm.
think that they kind of just, I mean, at least in my eyes, I kind of like forgot about them. And I don't I it's kind of weird though for me too, because when I watch a show, I stick through it the whole way. Like I'm not the type of person that just like stops watching a thing. I like will keep watching unless it's like, like One Piece or something where there's like 10 million episodes and I'm like I
Yeah.
can't do that. But like with RWBY, I was like, I just can't believe I stopped watching it, and I think that's probably indicative of just their overall inability to retain their fan base for whatever reason. But yeah, being gone, I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should pick up RWBY again and like reprise watching it and see what happened because I don't even remember like at all.
Yeah, understandable. I remember at some point, I think somewhere between volumes, sometime after the fall of Beacon Academy. I think that was at the end of
Yes,
season 2, season 3. Sometime
I
after
don't
that,
know, but
and
what you're saying is correct.
yes, yeah. So it's like sometime in the arc where we're beginning to like know and learn who Salem is and like all of her little underlings, I fell off
Hmm.
around that point in the story. Because I was having my own personal hangups on the show and the way characters and story was being written. So that's kind of like why I like faded away into the background of the RWBY fandom. Which, by the way, I think actually Somerset Sows, I think Bono actually may have been the one to have gotten me into Rooster Teeth slash RWBY.
So yeah, we met 2016 RTX. We did our group. It was so freaking cool. And then eventually because of different life things and such, I moved to Chicago. And when I lived there, we never got to go to a convention together. Like we saw each other
Yeah,
at ACEN the year I broke my arm, but we never but we never got to go to like a proper convention. And I think the reason why is because I didn't go to any conventions in Chicago except for C2E2, ACEN, the 1 year I broke my arm, and then I went to Anime Magic, which is like a newer convention that
yeah.
didn't used to exist,
It's
from
a
my
very
understanding.
very small and recent con for sure.
I know. I kind of regret that. I wish that like I went to more conventions when I like in the area when I lived in Chicago, but at the same time, a lot of those conventions probably were wiped out by COVID or like they never really started back up until like 2023, and by mid 2023 I'd already moved back here.
Yeah, I will forever mourn the loss of Daisho Con, which was the Kalahari
What
Con
is
up
that?
in Wisconsin Dells. So it's like the rest of the US had Colossal Con. Up in the Midwest, we had
Yeah.
Daisho Con, which I think was, I don't know if they were privately owned, but they were not associated with Colossal Con because it's like Colossal Con was Water Park Con. In the Midwest, we had Daisho Con up in the Wisconsin Dells, at the
Mhm.
Kalahari, and that was the Midwest's water park con. And Daisho didn't make it through the pandemic, but I think it was some branch of Colossal Con ended up buying the assets for Daisho Con and has rebranded it as Colossal Con North. But a lot of
Yeah.
us still call it Daisho-con because it's forever Daisho-con in our hearts. Just like the Sears Tower. It will forever be the Sears Tower and
Yes.
nothing else. I will fight people on
Wait.
this.
I didn't know that there was even a Daisho. I mean, okay, now that you're saying Daisho-con, that name is sounding familiar, and like when you say that out loud, it's bringing back some type of memory in my foggy brain from like back before COVID. Obviously, I never went, but from after I was aware that there was a Kalahari in Wisconsin, it was called Colossal Con North after that point, and people would go. But like, so have you been to Colossal Con North since it became officially Colossal Con?
In a way, yes. So what happened was that it became Colossal Con North, and then the November after my wedding, so November 2023, that's when Colossal Con North was happening. I was invited to go to a One Piece cabana pool party up in up in the Kalahari during the same weekend as Colossal Con North. But I was not attending Colossal Con North. I was just in the Kalahari for the One Piece cabana party. And then I
That
went
is
home.
so funny. That is so funny. Oh my god. So, oh my god, that's wild. You didn't experience like the full convention. You just kind of like saw it from like the sidelines, and you went to the you've been to that venue, presumably a lot, right? Because you went to
Yeah, yeah.
DaishoCon.
I've been to Daishokan before, when it was Daishokan, but when it became Colossal Con North, I didn't attend the con proper because it's like when you go in there you have to buy not only a con badge but you also have to buy a water park badge for the Kalahari. I only paid for the
Oh.
Kalahari water park badge because that's what I wanted to do, and then I had fun in a private cabana with other One Piece cosplayers, and I explicitly did not explore the rest of the Kalahari
Hmm.
where the rest of the con was being held.
So hey, DaishoCon / ColossalCon North, Anime Central. What other conventions in the Midwest are staples that you would go to on like an annual basis or like maybe every other year?
Some other staple cons in the Midwest are, as you've been to already, C2E2. That's another big con in the Midwest, as well as Gen Con. So Anime Central is the really, really big anime con, and then C2E2 is the big sci-fi comic convention. Where like big TV celebrities come to, and then Gen Con is like the big tabletop RPG,
Oh.
Magic the Gathering, uh, board games con of the Midwest. So those are like the other two big ones that I will visit when I have the chance to.
Yeah, Gen Con, I forgot about that. Like I haven't been, my friends have been, and they said it's really fun if you're into board games for sure. And I never got to go. There was one year I almost went.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's kind of funny. It was a year that Anime Magic was happening, and I was already going to go and help Yaya with her booth at that convention. It was her first time going to that con. I think it might have been the first year the con existed.
Mm-hmm.
And it conflicted with Gen Con, so I couldn't go. I guess are those really because like I had this perception that when I was living in Chicago, there were all these underground conventions that were happening that I just wasn't aware of, and I was like having like this FOMO of like, oh, there must be all these cons going on I don't even know about. But like, is that not the case? Are there really only those like three big ones that happen?
I mean, those are the three big ones. There are a small handful of like smaller cons that happen throughout the year. So it's like, starting from like big to smallest. There's Gen Con in Indianapolis. There's C2E2 in Chicago proper. There's Anime Central in Rosemont, Illinois. And
Mm-hmm.
then there is Colossal Con North up in the Kalahari in Wisconsin Dells. And then there is Anime Midwest, Control Alt Delete. Those are cons run by Ryan Kopp, so we don't
Oh
really.
no, not
Yes,
those.
yes, yes. They exist. Do I suggest going to them? Not really.
Wait. So after you hit on those like top conventions, then we get to like the
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 small nitty
fungus and
gritty.
like oh my god, we get to those cons. Okay, so the problematic ones. Okay, so there's like those ones. So what else is there? Is there anything after that, or does it just kind of trail off into like
There's
sin?
also anime. There's also Anime Magic, which you know about, and then there's
Hmm.
Anime Impulse, which is a smaller con. Very, very, very small. I don't know if Anime Impulse is another Ryan Kopf con. I'm sure someone has that information on hand, but we don't do Kopf cons. But then
Wait, how many conventions does this man own?
too many. This man has too many conventions. Someone needs to stop it.
Oh
He
my
just
god,
keeps
wait, so
getting
we
away
kind of
with
like
making
refer to
cons.
him. So like all these little cons are kind of like the anime Matsuri of the North, but like none of them are as big as anime Matsuri, right? But like they're like it's the same vibe, is what I understand, from like
Yeah,
the
it's
ownership to the actual con itself.
pretty much, yeah.
Oh my god. So wait, there's all these little ones. Okay, so I guess I didn't miss anything. I guess I didn't miss out on any of the con.
There was one more small con that's like a free con that's run by a college campus in the city proper. It's called UchiCon. It's small, it's free, it's
Oh.
really, really cute. It's kind of like a really small casual con that it's free admission. I really personally enjoy going to that. I call that like my little like casual vacation convention where it's like it's the energy of a large con, but it's really, really small, tight knit, and like where, you know, casual people go to just kind of like enjoy the con scene, but like on a lighter scale compared to like ACEN.
Okay. No, it makes sense, makes sense. And yeah, I know I kept referencing like the one year I went. ASEN was really fun and I had a good time. Although the convention center is kind of tragic. Like, okay, here's my hot take on ASEN.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
everyone was like, oh my wait, so here's a question. Wait, rewinding it back. Was ASEN always at that convention location or did it change?
ACEN since 2008 or 2007, since I've been attending that con, has always been in the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont. The only thing that's really changed is their utilization of the space. It used to
Mm-hmm.
be in just one section of the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center. So it's like when you enter, everything was on the left hand side. Nothing was in front of you with like access doors, nothing was to the right of you. But now in like 2023, 2024, they are utilizing, like, it's grown so much, they're utilizing like the whole space, including
Mm-hmm.
the Hyatt that is connected to the convention center. That is where they do panels and stuff. But it's always been hosted at the Hyatt slash Donald D. Stevens Convention Center. It's just how they map
Gotcha.
out and utilize the space.
Gotcha. I feel like I'd want to go back some year again, but like one, I have trauma from literally breaking my elbow
I
at
will
a
be on elbow
rave.
duty. I promise.
Oh
I
my
will be on
god.
arm
That
duty
was
for you.
so bad.
I
That was
felt
so
so bad.
bad. Like I was like it was so terrible. And then I literally was like, "Hello, there's like cables exposed on the floor." And they're like, "Oh, we'll make a safety incident and we'll take note of it for the future." And I'm like, "Okay, my arm's broken,
You
but
weren't even like
okay."
the only person who was like hurt by that though, right?
No, everyone was, all these people were falling and they were like, oh, we've had multiple incidents reported from this. And I'm like, okay, well, great. At least multiple people have like broken their bodies. You know, I'm not the only one. Misery loves company, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, no. So like the location itself, like I get it's further out into the suburbs, so it makes it cheaper for them to host the event there because it's not going to be as expensive as like obviously like downtown Chicago, and I get
Yeah.
that. But also like from a, maybe I'm spoiled because like I feel like I like convention centers where they have first of all, here's my thing. I love when the hotel is in the convention center's in the hotel. Like the hotel shares a convention space. And so like it's all connected and you're in the same building. I love that.
Hmm.
I know at ACEN technically the hotel has a bridge that connects to the convention center, but the bridge seems like a literal like a winding back rooms maze
It's a liminal space.
labyrinthine
I highly
situation.
suggest just taking the streets, man. Like
Oh,
don't take the sky bridge. It's not worth it.
it's so long, it's hot, and it literally you're like winding back and forth through all these corridors with no direction of where you're heading. It's just masses of people funneling through like hamsters in a cage.
Yeah.
Literally like hamsters in a cage, like in the little tubes. That's what
You,
it
you
feels
get you
like.
get
Okay.
all
That's what it feels
sweaty.
like.
It's just there's no AC. It's just goodbye makeup. That's it.
It's so bad. So I don't like that. I also don't like that you can't really walk anywhere to get to restaurants that don't cost like literally $60 a person because all the restaurants over there near the airport,
Yeah.
it's like the Capitol Grill, Del Frisco Steakhouse, like all these places that are literally like fine dining restaurants. And there's like technically they have some other places too, but you have to still drive there. They're like a little too far to walk. I feel like you'd have to like walk a good distance down the freeway to be able to get to that little area that has the food.
That has like the Giordano's pizza, the McDonald's, yeah, that little
Yeah,
area, yeah.
it's kind of far. I don't like that. And then, but I do like the fact that parking there is easy, and I do like the fact that it's a big convention. So like, there's lots of artists. That was nice. Oh, photos. Wait, tell me if I'm wrong. I feel like the photo situation is tragic. Am I wrong?
Okay, so something that has always been okay. So, back in like early days ACEN, like early 2010s, right? Like late 2010s, ACEN, before 2010, whatever that era. Um, Photo ops were always cosplayer run. So it's like cosplayers would submit saying, "Hey, we want to have an XYZ photo shoot. Can we put that in the schedule, please?" And then like whoever is maintaining the
Uh-huh.
schedule, they'll run it through, and then they'll ultimately decide if your thing will get put in the full proper ACEN schedule. And then the location of the con and the spaces that it provides is not the best. You got the docks, you got the marble fountain. That's kind of really it. You kind of got like
The
the
docks.
concrete
What's the
mirror wall.
docks?
The docks. It's the docks are where that little bridge is. The docks are where the little garden is, just on the other side of the entrance of opposite the entrance of the Hyatt Hotel. So it's like if you were
The
to
loading docks?
yes, the loading docks.
Wait, stop. I thought you were talking about like a I thought you were talking about like a pier or something.
No,
Like an actual
no.
place that was like
That's like in
pretty.
the
Like the
city proper.
No, I know, but like when you said docks, I was like, is there like a little waterway or something I'm not familiar with behind the convention center? No,
Nah,
literally. Okay, so if the
plain old
loading
loading
docks is
docks.
one of the top photo spaces, then that tells you already the baseline we're working with. If the
Yeah,
loading docks are like the
yeah,
go-to.
for sure. It's because it's the largest space that can handle large amounts of people, because the convention center itself is not conducive for having more than like 50 people crowding in one spot, or it gets crowded real fast. Nowadays, I think people just kind of like do social media and say, "Hey, I'm going to be hosting this unofficial cosplay gathering, photo shoot. Let's all meet here at this time," and then people will do it. But we're still left with the really crowded, small, cramped spaces. But usually, the loading
Right.
docks are the largest space that people can kind of gather around for.
And the lighting is like dim. I feel like I remember being like dim lighting,
It's
and
not
then
pretty,
like outside
but you
of
make do.
no, and then like and like in the Circle Drive drop off where there's like that water fountain. There's like it's also dim in there as well,
Yeah, it's not great.
and then
It's not
there's
great
like
in there.
a hallway that has like a marble like
The marble fountain.
sculpture or something.
Yeah,
Is
it's
it
like
a
a marble
fountain?
fountain with
Okay,
like crystal chandeliers.
yeah, so that's like passable. I feel like if you can compose the photo in a decent way, that can be passable. But like, yeah, I was like, oh my god, and that's the thing too. I feel like I'm spoiled. I've hoarded out this convention so many times, but I'm really spoiled by San Japan because that convention has their shit on lock in terms of their venue because they have multiple hotels that are next to the convention center. They have it on the Riverwalk with plenty of restaurants. They have photo shoot locations because you're on the Riverwalk with like forest areas and waterfalls. And then they have like all these places you can go to after the con. They have like a convenience store, a mall that's connected. Like they have all of this stuff and it's all right there. And I'm like, you can knock out every single one of your cosplay needs all just there. So whenever I'm not presented with that actual absolute level of luxury, I'm like, well, this could be better, I guess. I guess we're here. I guess we're slumming it this time. No, but there are worse places to go to an anime convention. It's not that bad, but
Yeah,
the
for
convention
sure.
was fun though.
Absolutely, just because it's like I've heard a lot of great things about San Japan, and when you describe it like that, I feel that is like ideal dream convention experience to have everything so close and accessible like that, versus like ACEN, the photo locales aren't great. Food is either far away and or expensive. There is a new shopping mall right next to the furthest hotel on that street.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's like
that's
you can get
true.
like mall court food too, but it's still like you still gotta walk all the way there. So it's just kind of
Yeah, so it's a
like
hike.
ACEN is a little tragic, but it's my little tragic. I love it. So
My Little
it's
Tragic.
what
Oh my
I
god.
have,
No.
Zach.
It's the best we have.
It's
No,
the best we
honestly,
have.
you should some year try to get down to San Japan because it's a great time and the other location is great. But okay, so moving on from conventions and the Illinois convention scene. Wait, honestly, one more question for you. Your favorite convention? Would you say your favorite convention in the Midwest Illinois area is ACEN?
That is such a fun question to ask me. Because the vibes back in like 2010 versus the vibes now, they're not comfy. So it's just like
Ooh, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
it's just that the con scene has changed, con etiquette has changed, the cosplay mentality has changed, and the way people interact at ACEN, I feel it's not as like mindful as it once was. So
Ooh.
it's not my favorite con. I still go to ACEN 'cause that's like where all my friends go. That's where all like my favorite artists go. I'll still attend. I wouldn't say it's my favorite con. I
Okay.
don't know if I have a favorite con right now because I'm slowly diverting away from cons. But C2E2
We're
is
gonna
pretty
get into
cool.
that too. Yeah, no, we're gonna get into that at the hot topics. We're gonna talk about that just in
Absolutely.
general. So
Absolutely.
if you had to recommend a single convention for someone to go to in the Chicago area, would you say C2E2 is probably your recommendation
I
for
would
them?
probably say C2E2 is my recommendation. It's got anime, it's got comics, it's got TV show celebs. It's a pretty well-rounded con, and it's pretty freaking huge based, especially because like you've been in that space. Like it's
Mhm.
kind of massive. So I would recommend people go to C2E2 because like they got their
I
shit
think
together.
Yeah, I think the convention center is actually one of the largest in the world. In the world.
Oh,
And because it was so big, I googled it once. But the one thing I will say is that it's located in like downtown Chicago pretty much, but it also is too far away to like effectively walk to food options.
that is
There's
also
like a
very correct.
McDonald's.
Yes.
There's like a McDonald's in the basement of that building that everyone like flocks to and like hunches over their chicken nuggets on the floor, like eating them like little squirrels. But like there's no like all the food options and restaurants, I feel like you have to still Uber to because it's at least like a 10-minute Uber to get to Chinatown. It's like close to Chinatown, but it's too far to walk to
It's too
Chinatown. So
far,
like I feel
yeah.
like that's the plague with Chicago conventions. I don't know. So C2E2, and then what's the one convention that you think that people should stay away from in the
Um,
Chicago area?
People should stay away from Anime Midwest, which is a CoffCon that happens in the summertime. They should stay away from
Where
Con
is
Alt
it? Where is it
Delete.
located? Like
It's all in the same space. It's all in the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center in Rose.
wait, time out, because Anime Magic was also in the Donald E. Stevens convention.
It's
Wait.
the
So
only con center like in Chicago outside of like the McCormick Place and C2E2. That's where all of like the cons are.
Wait, so are you telling me that every single convention that happens in Chicago is basically at the same place? It's just like different names?
Almost, yes. Yes.
Oh my
It's
god,
what we
except for
have.
C2E2, I guess. Yeah. Oh my god. Wait, okay, so Con Alt Delete, Anime Midwest, those are no-goes.
Those are
Are there
no
others
goes.
too?
Like look up Ryan Koff cons. Those are all big band lists. Do not go to those. If you want a free con, UchiCon's pretty fun. It's really cute. It's a 1-day con in the city. It's adorable. I very much enjoy it.
I'm a little about to search for this. Hold up. Wait, I looked up Ryan Comp, and the next thing was Ryan Comp attorney.
I
Wait, when you look for his thing, it comes up with like learn the truth about him. No, but it's his website though. Wait, okay. Anime Midwest and Annie Minneapolis. He has a convention in Minneapolis.
I believe that's also a Ryan convention too. Yeah,
Metacon
probably,
Minneapolis.
probably.
Amazing,
Yes, yes.
amazing.
That is also a bad con. Don't go to that one.
Wait, there's more.
Yes,
Con
this
Alt
man keeps
Delete.
making cons and no one's stopping him.
Anime Zap with an exclamation part.
Yes,
um
yes.
can't Con Pie exclamation point con. He loves an exclamation point in his names.
How else are you
Why are there
gonna
so
make it
many?
zesty, you know?
And then there's some defunct ones that I guess went bankrupt allegedly. Who knows? Anime Spark exclamation point. Arch Anime, and then Yoi Con.
Mm-hmm. Those all
All
sound
of those
like
things.
cons that he's made.
That's insane. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I guess don't go to those. It's so sad. The list of conventions to not attend is like times 30 the list of conventions that are like palatable.
You're not wrong.
It's so depressing. That's so sad. Okay, so I want to talk about Renaissance festivals because you're big into Renfest. When I think of Renaissance festivals, I think Sarah first in my head because I feel like on any given moment I could go on Instagram and you're at a Renfest. So when was your first Renaissance festival that you went to? Like how did it start for you?
My first Renaissance fair was the Bristol Renaissance Fair up in Kenosha, Wisconsin. It starts Saturday and Sunday following 4th of July and it goes to Labor Day weekend. It's always your schedule. I started going to
Saturday,
that.
Sunday following 4th of July and goes through Labor Day. So it's through the summer,
Yes.
the peak of summer.
Yes.
Oh my God, is that
It gets
hot?
hot up there.
Oh
It
my
gets
God,
hot
because
up
I'm
there.
thinking of that too. I'm like, I know Wisconsin isn't the same weather as Texas, but if Texas had a Renaissance festival in the summer, everyone would be melting on the floor and like literally stroking out from the heat.
I recently went to Sherwood in McDade, Texas. So it's just like that's a fun little comparison because it's like Bristol can get really really hot in the summertime, but the weekend I went for Sherwood, it was a little bit on the warmer side, but it was a little bit more manageable. Just
What
cuz
time
it's
of
like
year is that?
that was early April. I went April
Oh, okay.
12th and 13th last month. Yeah,
Not bad. Not bad.
not bad, not bad.
Okay, so you started going to Bristol Renaissance Festival in Kenosha. How when was your first Renaissance festival that you went to? Like what year was that? Do you remember?
I think I went senior year of high school. And then I started really getting into it after that because whenever I would come home from college, I would work the summer there at the Bristol Renaissance Fair as like part of the ticket booth. Uh
Wait, really?
yeah. Yeah, I
Oh my
working Bristol
God.
Renaissance Fair was one of my very many summer odd jobs in the middle of college. So,
That's crazy. So you worked there. I also obviously attended for like years. Do you go every year? I mean, I think you go every year. I've seen you there every year, I think.
if I could
Multiple
live there,
times.
I
Multiple
absolutely
times a
would.
year.
Yes, I
Like you
go.
could go pitch, can't you go like pitch a tent in like the field or something and just
So
live there?
fun fact, from what I understand, Texas fairs are the only fairs that I'm aware of that you camp at because Midwest fairs you don't camp at. And I was having this conversation with
Oh,
another cosplay
really?
friend of mine. You don't camp at Bristol. You only camp there if you're a performer or you're living on the premises because you work fair. But like as like an attendee, there's no
Oh.
campgrounds. That's not something that Bristol specifically is able to do between space and logistics of it. So, yeah.
Oh, so you can't
Yeah.
live there. Sad.
It's different.
Sad
I
for
wish I could
you.
live there.
Um No, I mean, I never camped at a Renfest before, but I've only ever been to the Houston Renaissance Festival. I don't know if that's the name of it technically. But
It's the
like it's the
really,
big
really
one
big
that's
one.
north, the really really big one. Yeah, that's
I'll
north of
probably see
Houston.
you later this year. I'm hoping
Oh
to
my
go to
God,
that one.
wait.
Yeah.
I want to so the tentative plan is to do a Baldur's Gate group at that
Yes.
Renaissance Festival.
Yes.
Um
I can't wait to
that
see
would be so fun. So
pics.
we'll see. I know, we'll see. But no, I haven't been in a few years. I feel like when I moved out of Houston, I stopped going because it was a pretty far drive to get there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so much fun. My favorite thing was they had these little honey sticks that were like flavored. Have you had those before?
Oh yeah, it's for I think the last 2 or 3 years. It's been tradition on closing day of Bristol, right before security sweeps everyone out to close down the fairgrounds. I always go to the honey shop and I always pay $36 for 100 honey sticks. And those honey sticks last me for the year. It's tradition. Brian is always shaking his head at me, but I love to go home with a thick pack of 100 honey sticks, and I just enjoy them throughout the year until I go back.
You know what I didn't think of either? So as an adult, I actually really enjoy drinking tea and I always add honey to that. But as a younger kid, I would just get the honey sticks and just like shoot them up
Oh
like
yeah,
a pixie stick. I would just like eat the honey. But like I'm thinking in my head, I could get that honey and use it in teas and actually, or even use it in cocktails. Like you could like use that to make like simple syrups and things like that if you wanted to.
absolutely.
Like that could be good. Um, but no, so you Renaissance Festival was Renaissance Festivals your gateway into D&D, like Dungeons and Dragons, or did that come first?
Um, they kind of happened at the same time because I went to Bristol for the first time because of a friend who was trying to get me into playing D&D.
Okay. Okay. So they were kind of in tandem with one another. But so you've been playing, have you been actively playing D&D since like high school then?
Essentially, yes. I played a lot like in the summertime when we were like home for like the year between college years. But I've been effectively been playing D&D for like a hot minute now. Yeah.
Okay, I should like to get back a step. Whenever, addition to Renaissance festivals, when I think of Sarah Feelsbender, I think of Dungeons and Dragons and dice. That's the next thing in my mental filing cabinet for you in my head. How many, if you had, and this is probably not going to be possible for you to estimate. Well, actually, no. I can ask you this question: what's your longest campaign that you've played, and what class and race of character did you play in D&D?
Ooh, that is a good question. I think right now it is a toss up between my West Marches 2 group, where it was a server of like 80 players and like 10 DMs. And that went for a couple of years. And I was playing my bread and butter Ranger class. I love Ranger class to death. That's I think what that may be one of the top two. The other one is I think a 3-year long campaign where I played a rogue. The
Holy
first
shit!
campaign,
Wait,
the
so
West March. Sorry, go ahead.
no, 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 no. I just wanted to ask, like, how do you do a campaign with 80 people and 10 DMs? Like, what does that even look like? Like, how is that working?
Yeah, so a West Marches campaign is kind of like where it's kind of like one is like living in a town, and when a DM has like a mission or like a session to run, they could be like the uh one of the towns is being overrun by ghosts. We need 5 adventurers to come and solve the ghost issue. And then anyone in the server who is of the appropriate level can sign up and make a party and go run that mission with that DM. So it's like each DM had like
That's
their own little like story plot within the campaign. So it was kind of very big open world. So that was a really
wow.
fun campaign to have been a part of.
That sounds like almost like an MMO, like an MMO RPG game, but translated into D&D, which
Yeah,
I didn't think ever existed before. That's crazy. So like you would be able to go on these side missions with people you may have never met before or with DM. Well, I mean, if there's only 80 of them, you probably had interacted with some of them a handful of times, at least eventually. But like
eventually.
new people and a new DM that you like, and you would, but you'd all be like in the same world with the same rules, the same assumptions, the same like overarching plot, but it'd be like completely new people sometimes.
Yeah, so all the DMs they had like their own story to like tell based on like what missions they were doing, but they were all working together to kind of build out this world. So it's just like and like when new DMs or new players come in, the current DM team would usually kind of onboard people to kind of give them like a comprehensive summary of like what's been going on and like what's going on in the story that they're jumping into. So it's kind of like one long movie or book that's just being played out in like kind of like Game of Thrones. Like
Ah, okay.
we're like following different groups and we're seeing that story unfold and that story unfold, and it has certain leading players. So it's kind of big but also like very fun and enjoyable to just kind of like watch and spectate to and not always like be participating in the missions.
Gotcha. No, that when you say Game of Thrones, that like drew it into kind of like, okay, all these little like pockets of plot development are happening at the same time, and they all contribute to the overarching whole. Did you ever have this moment with all 80 of them where there was like one big bad that you all had to fight with like all 80 people together, or does that not happen?
So, not with the campaign I was in. That campaign ended prematurely, but the campaign that preceded that, which was in the same fashion of like 80 some players to like 10 DMs, that campaign went out with a bang, and there was a big bad evil guy, and like everyone on the server participated in like the final combat showdown. It was big. It was really cool. I wasn't there, but I heard stories of like all the
No.
crazy things happening. But like I had like eyes in there after the fact, so like I could see kind of like what was happening based on like scrolling through Discord. So that was
Mhm.
it's really cool, especially when I was playing in West Marches 2 in the big campaign I was in. I think the largest I ever saw was like 25 people run by one or two DMs at like one session to like fight like a local boss or something. But it can get pretty
How do you
crazy, but
even?
it's fun.
That's crazy. How do you even get connected to these campaigns? Like, is there like a forum or something where you find these campaigns and you sign up? Or like, how does it even happen?
So I had one of my friends was going to school on the East Coast, and then that friend made friends with another person in their department of like trying to develop a video game or like video game development, and then that person pulled me into the Discord server to say, "Hey, play with these 80 other people." Because it's just like I was still kind of like getting used to like being small groups of D&D, but my friend was like, "Hey, you should get into this West Marches 2 group. I think you'd have a lot of fun." And I'm like, 80 people sounds like a lot. That sounds really scary. I don't know if I want to do that. But then they were like, "No, no, no, it'll be fun. I promise. I'll be with you the whole way." And it turned out that my friend was one of the DMs for the large campaign. So I've kind of been playing games with them ever since. But they always like pull me into games whenever they try and run things. So that was my introduction to like the
Gotcha.
big server.
Gotcha. And then I guess from there you meet people, right? Just organically, you like meet new people through campaigns, and then those spin off into other campaigns. And you, how many concurrent campaigns have you ever been in at once?
I don't know if you, I don't know if you want the answer to that question.
I do. That's why I asked. That's why I asked, sister. We want the answer. How many campaigns have you been juggling like a circus clown under the big top all at once at the same time?
Okay. All right. Sunday is Julia game as the main game. I have an alternate game that plays on Sundays when that main game doesn't run. That's 2. Monday is Zoe game. When Zoe game can't run, Brian game runs to fill the gap. Tuesday is Drew game. When Drew game doesn't run, Lindsay game runs. That's Tuesday. Wednesday, I'm in a small group and we're trying to get another game off the ground. That's Liz game. And then Thursday there is no game. Thursday there is no game. Friday there's Ada game. And then sometimes I guessed in a vampire game, and sometimes I guessed in a superhero game. And then Saturday, which would be game number 11, is my Christian game.
So I have questions, and I'm gonna go through the list. So was it just completely coincidental that I asked you to record on a Thursday, and this happens to be the one day of the week you have no D&D campaigns running?
Yes.
That's insane. Okay, so second question. When you were labeling all these campaigns, are those the DMs that run the campaign, or are those your
Yes.
characters' names?
Those are the DMs
Okay.
that
Do
run
you
the
have a
game.
different Okay, do you have a different oh my god, I realized you just said yes to that question. I was like, is it this or this? Yes. Oh my god.
Sorry.
So I was just like, I just realized that. So DMs, and then also do you have different characters for each campaign
Yes.
with a different character sheet? A
Yes.
different class?
Yes.
That's insane. How do you keep track of it all? Like, how did you have, are these like digital? Like, are all these games done on the computer, or are they done in person, or like a combo of both?
Monday games and Tuesday games are in person because those are all like my local Chicago friends. All the other
Uh-huh.
games are online through Discord, and it's a mix between D&D and Savage Worlds. But they all use either Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds or Foundry to kind of facilitate running the game.
Gotcha. Okay, I've used Roll20 before when I did a one shot online, so I'm familiar with that. But that's crazy. That's literally insane. And I think my schedule is stressed because I'm doing like cosplay, podcast, gym, and then like other things like personal life things. And you're out here like I literally have a rigorous schedule, campaigns back to back to back to back to back, club, bus, flight, another club, no sleep, oh my god, that's insane. Okay, so I guess all that being said, you do a combination of in-person and online. How did your love for D&D eventually translate into you starting your own dice business? And can you talk about your dice business, because I want to like, hear about it and like how it started and like what you do and all that.
Yeah, so in the years that I've been been playing D&D, I saw each of my character as like an original character and each of them had their own style and color palette. So I would start collecting dice. Be like, these are my dice for Monday game. These are my dice for Tuesday game. These are my dice for Friday game. And eventually it kind of got out of hand. And then I decided I don't want to work corporate anymore because corporate healthcare plus pandemic um put me in a very, very bad place. So I decided I'm going to
Oh,
try and run a small business and try and make dice and sell them online. My shop name is Pieces of Parhelia. If you don't know, a Parhelia is a really cool phenomenon that happens in the sky when the sky is clear but it's just cold enough to have ice crystals form in the air but it's not snowing. It's like ambient in the air, and when the sun is shining it shines through the ice crystals so it looks like there's like a rainbow halo, specifically on the sides as like a starburst but also at the top of the sun, so it's like a really cool halo, and
what?
they're called sun dogs or parhelias. So
That's real?
yeah, it's
That's a real
real.
thing?
Yeah,
Have you seen one before in person?
I have actually. I was driving. I was in the car. Brian and I were driving home from dropping off some one of our friends off at the airport, and it was an early flight, and the sun was shining, and I looked up, and I'm like, oh, it's a Parhelia, and like we were on the highway, we were zooming fast, but I was trying to like take a picture so quick. But it's just a really beautiful phenomenon. I think celestial bodies and sky phenomenon are so cool.
That's so wild. I never heard of that before. But also in Chicago, I feel like it's probably more common than like in Texas, for example, because it's always cold.
It tends to be cold and sometimes very cloudy here in Chicago, so more often than not, sundogs kind of come out when they can, for sure.
That's so great. So okay, you started your business kind of out of like a, oh well, I'm already hoarding tons and tons of dice for my 1,000 campaigns I'm doing all the time. I like pretty things, and also I'm exhausted from the pandemic and working in healthcare during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do something I'm passionate about and jump for it.
Yes, that is essentially how it happened. I've had a lot of supportive friends, as well as Brian, kind of helps supporting the upstart of my creativity. So it's been really nice, just kind of like experimenting with dice and resin and just kind of like seeing how it goes, because resin has a mind of its own. It'll kind of do whatever it wants in the mold, but it always turns out something really, really pretty.
Send me the make sure to send me the actual link address, or I can just Google it, but send me the link, that way I can put it in the show notes so that anyone listening can actually open the show notes on this episode and go directly to your website. Because
Absolutely.
I think everyone deserves to see these beautiful creations. They're so pretty. I I feel like I I almost want to do another D&D campaign just so I have an excuse to buy some dice from you, because I haven't done like an actual D&D campaign since like, oh my god, I was a senior in high school.
Oh wow.
and I did a 2-year long campaign, and it was so fun. But I
Hell
think that
yeah.
it's a big time commitment. I have a lot of friends that play D&D actually now, and I'm definitely going to recommend them to your business because they don't play in person as much, but I think you can still have dice and use them, right? Even if
Oh
you're
yeah.
playing
Oh yeah,
on.
absolutely. It depends on the DM. A lot of DMs will just be like, "Yeah, honor system. If you wanna, if we're playing online and you roll physical dice at your desk, I just ask honor system." But usually, DMs are pretty cool about having homemade dice, handmade dice, at the table.
Yeah. No. Oh my gosh, wait. Can you like weight the dice and like put like a weight in it to where like a D20 always rolls 20?
So there's like a fun controversy that like people, not like controversy, but like there's always like talks about how handmade dice makers, indie dice makers, will always like make the disclaimer that like their dice are handmade, therefore they are unbalanced, therefore they are as balanced as possible, but they are not intentionally rigged to give you high rolls, just because it's like
Right.
if there is like like dead snake skin in there, or like gems or like pearls in there to like as like inclusions in the dice, that potentially adds weight depending on where that's centered in the dice. So some people are like,
Oh.
no handmade dice because that's potentially like weighted differently than like standard dice. But usually people don't intentionally weigh their dice, but you can weigh your dice. In fact, there's a fun nifty little trick where if you take your dice and you have it 20 side up and you put it in the oven at like a certain temperature for like a short stint of time, that will not melt the dice, but it'll kind of like warm it up enough to have things like sink down, therefore weighing it a little bit better. But you can intentionally make, as in weighted dice, to give you higher numbers. I just personally don't. Because that's a lot of math, and I don't do
Wait.
math.
But you should like you should make a D20 and just put like a little like lead like pellet or something in the bottom and then just sell that. It'd be like the perfect D20. That'd
The
be so
perfect D20.
cute.
My
Yeah,
goal
it'd
is
be
at
so cute.
exactly.
What was your goal?
My goal is to at one point make either a D20 that has a 20 on every side. It's just a D20, like a fun novelty thing. But there's also someone made a STL file of a D20, but each face is not a number. It's like an emoji cat face. And I really want to make dice that it doesn't have numbers but has like different like emoticon cat faces on the dice, and I'm like,
Oh my
that's
god.
really cute and really niche. I want to make those dice.
People would buy that shit. Oh my god, no, you should. Wait, so what's the hardest part? Like, what does that process look like? I guess like in I know that like it's probably complicated and there's a lot of steps, but like I guess in summer, like how do you even are you like molding and casting the dice? Or like how does that even work?
So, what's really cool about dice making nowadays is that there's a lot more resources than if you were to start like maybe 10 years ago. I source my dice molds through a Etsy shop where they make generic dice molds, and then they say you can sell dice using these molds. That's totally fine. And I use those molds to mix and pour resin into, and I basically sell them off as like my dice. I did make them. The molds aren't original to me. They're just generic molds, but that's totally fine and acceptable because trying to make molds with silicone is like a whole other process of dice making that I haven't had the
Mhm.
opportunity to explore and experiment with. Yeah, just mold, resin, and then polishing, and then sanding, and then inking, and then more polishing, and then photos. It's a big multi-step process, but it's a lot of fun.
Do you do custom requests? Like for like if someone's like
Yes.
if
So
I
if you
said,
ever
"Okay,
want
well I
custom dice,
want
just let me know.
I'm like I want Pikachu inspired dice and I want like yellow and gold glitter with like a little bit of brown and maybe like red." Like you could do those.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very easy. In fact, if you want, we can talk further details about it later. But I just had the craziest idea that I want to also make you like a chonk D20 that is like this big, like maybe like slightly bigger.
Oh my god.
And in addition to the 7-piece set, I want to do that, but I want to 3D print a small surprise Pikachu face and put it in the middle of the die and give that to you.
Yes. Oh my god, that'd be so good. That would be everything. Oh my god, that's so cute.
I would be so happy to
No,
make you
that's
Pikachu dice. Let's go.
Oh my god! So do you? No, that sounds like a dream. Honestly, then I'll have to actually have an excuse to go join a D&D campaign just so I can use my cunty little dice. That would be so fun. So do you think that you've channeled a lot of your creativity and a lot of your I guess passion for crafting into dice making in the recent years as opposed to cosplay? Or do you still think that like a lot of that outlet is still put into cosplay? Or like I guess what's that balance look like for you? Because you obviously did not always make dice. We talked about like this is a fairly new in the grand scheme of your life, a newer endeavor for you. But like obviously when you're doing so much from a hobby perspective and a creative perspective, you only have so much time to go around. So do you think that you've like shifted some of your cosplay energy into dice making instead as like a similar type of vibe?
Yeah, I would say that being a cosplayer and like generating all of these like skills and like honing them and like having this innate creativity, I would say that that creativity is still kind of there in the cosplay, but it's just on a much smaller tiny niche scale. But I would say a lot of that energy has gone split into D&D slash dice making, as well as making new fun outfits for going to Renfaire. So like there's still like that
Oh yeah.
costuming aspect of like my creativity, but a lot of the fun experimentation goes into the dice making.
No, I that's actually such a good point. It's like you have like found not it's not a niche, I guess, because it's like, D&D and Renfair are not necessarily like these like subversive like secret things, but you have found a niche within the grand scheme of like nerddom, I would say. And you've really settled there and become like very, I don't know, part of that whole community, which is actually really nice, I think.
I I have in recent years I have been calling myself like a Rennie, which is like what like instead of like con goer, I'm now a Rennie. Because I don't really do cons anymore. I do Ren fairs. I have
Uh-huh.
graduated. I've graduated away from cons and I identify more as like a Ren fair person or a Rennie who also just plays a lot of D&D and plays with dice on the side too. So, yeah,
Is
that's
there
kind
like
of
is there a Renaissance festival that you want to go to that you haven't been to before? We obviously have the ones in Texas and then the Bristol one, but are there others in the country or in the world that you want to go to that you know of that you've never been able to go to yet?
so I think one of them is the big Texas Renaissance Fair down in Houston because that's the largest
Mhm.
Renaissance Fair in the US at like 77 acres. It's huge because like
Yeah, it's big.
Bristol's like 30, 33 acres, but like the big one in Houston, I think is like 77 acres. It's massive. So like that's on my
Yeah.
list to go to eventually, which will probably be later this year.
Oh my gosh, nice. Wait, so you're telling me that I started the only one I've ever been to is like the biggest one in the US.
Yes. Yes. It is massive compared to the other fairs that I've been to based on videos I've seen, based on like the map. The map itself, it's like this is like you got to go at least like 3 weekends, 6 days in order to like fully encompass what is going on at this fair because like that's
Yeah.
huge. That's a lot of ground to cover. 77 acres, that's
No, it
crazy.
is. It is, and, like, I know that and every weekend is a different theme, and so, like, depending on what weekend you go, you can dress different, so, like, I've gone to, like, pirate-themed ones, I've gone to, like, the fantasy-themed ones, like, I've worn cosplay there, I've worn, like, more Renaissance outfits that are I mean, I've never gone in, like, crazy cosplay, like, I'm not gonna show up in, like, Mercury from RWBY to the Renaissance Festival, like, I'm like, "Ew, that's ick," for me personally, but, I have gone in, like, I went one year in as Pit from Kid Icarus with like the angel wings and like the halo and like the toga-esque kind of thing. So like I've gone in cosplays that kind of fit more the vibe for Renfest before. And then I've
Mhm.
also gone like as a vampire. I've gone as like a pirate. So I've done that. But yeah, I want to go back. And honestly, like I said before, Baldur's Gate would be so fun. Wait, would you ever do a Baldur's Gate cosplay? Did you play Baldur's Gate? I'm sure you have, right?
I started playing Baldur's Gate in the height of my meltdown of wedding planning, but I haven't gotten very far in it yet.
Oh.
But I know a majority of what happens by pure virtue of like seeing cosplayers cosplay things from it and like just people talking about it around me. I want to eventually play through all of Baldur's Gate, but I know at this point a good amount of what's gone on. But I don't know who I would cosplay in Baldur's Gate, but I would be happy to cosplay Baldur's Gate with you.
Yeah, as I was saying, I was like, I feel like this is so up your alley because it's a video game, but it's literally basically Dungeons and Dragons in a video game format. And then you also have these amazing characters and designs that are perfect to wear to a Renaissance festival. So I'm like, this is literally you essenced into like a game. I feel like, I mean,
It
I don't
is.
know. I mean,
It's
it's
very
like
good.
you should definitely, in between your 130,000 ongoing D&D campaigns, you should find time to play Baldur's Gate because I recommend it.
When I do,
No,
I'll
that's so
definitely be
fun.
like kicking in the door to your DMs and be like, "Hey, here's my commentary of what's currently happening in the game."
Yes. Yes. There's so many good homosexuals in that game too. It's so
Heck
fun.
yes, love it.
Um okay, so I want to talk about hot topics and then we'll go to our guest question, but I want to ask you. So you hit on this before. You said ACEN doesn't feel like the same convention that it was before. And I've had this conversation, not specific to ACEN, because I'm not really talking about ACEN to people in my normal day to day, because a lot of people in Texas had never been to ACEN before. Just in general about conventions, I feel like, and this is probably, ooh, let me hit my microphone because I'm so passionate about this. I feel like this is a blanket statement, but that I feel like we're almost like in the dark age of conventions, but the golden age of cosplay. And I'll explain what I mean by that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like conventions, I mean, you've seen the Texas convention like stories via me and like other people. Like what is your take on that actually? I want your thoughts on the convention Texas landscape as an outsider that has only seen this shit on Instagram.
This doesn't apply to all Texas cons. It's just certain ones in particular. It reminds me of a lovely con called Dash Con that happened on the tumblers, and I can only wonder whoever thought running a con was going to be easy clearly had no idea what they were doing and were setting themselves up for failure because one, they either have never been to a con themselves, they don't know what sort of proper expectations to be having in terms of handling guests or handling cosplayers or like hotel logistics and stuff. So it's just kind of like, y'all okay down there? Like, I just think because it's like yeah, every con has their drama and their tea, but I feel seeing shit that you've been sharing on your stories, I'm just sitting here thinking, who let these people run a con when they actually don't know anything about running a con either from the logistical side or as like an attendee. So it's just like there's like a base level of information I feel after you've been going to cons for a while that you would know what to expect and how things would be handled. But when it's not executed like that, you're left wondering what happened? What went wrong? Where did
No,
things go?
very that. And here's the thing too, there are so many conventions in Texas, like so many. And like when I think our field of view is, I mean, at least mine is more focused on anime conventions with like the occasional Comic Con is like on my radar. But if
Mm-hmm.
you count the Comic Cons and the anime conventions, and even then you go into like the board game cons and the trading card cons, there are so many conventions in Texas. And I think it's a combination of it's not very expensive to have cons here because it's just cheaper to run the events in general. There's a lot of voice actors that live here because of the big production studios in Texas for anime.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of the cities are really populated. There's like a lot of big cities and industries in Texas. There's lots of people that have interest in these genres that want to go. And so I feel like there's so many conventions that either come and then 1 year they're gone, or like they start and then they implode, or and then there's like only a very select few that actually stand the test of time. And I can probably name them on one hand. Okay, here we go. There's San Japan, right?
Number one.
There's Comic Palooza in Houston. There's Anime Fest in Dallas. There's Anime Matsuri, which is not a model of the community for a convention, but it exists still technically, so it gets thrown up on the list as well. And then there's also we'll count them too. We'll count OniCon because that's in Houston and it's been going along for a long time. And then we can give IkiCon the sixth spot. We'll add them to the other hand. We got one more on this hand. I think 6 conventions. I think that's literally all of the actual conventions that have been going on for more than a decade in Texas.
Yeah.
All the other ones have either gone away, including ACON, because who knows if they're ever coming back, or they're new and they just popped up in the last year or two, and it almost feels like a cash grab sometimes. Like it feels like it's like, oh, we don't know what's happening. We're just gonna pop up and like get as much money from badges that we can, from artist alley sales and from autograph signings, and then we're gonna just implode on ourselves and then disappear into the ether. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I feel that like when cons pop up, it's not very well fleshed out, and it does feel a little bit like a cash grab because it's like, why are you doing this? Like, why are they accomplishing or like advertising in this way and then executing in the way that they do, which is poorly? So it's just kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
who let them? Who let them do that? And it's a very similar scape I feel up here in the Midwest, where when a con tries to start, it doesn't usually last very long, or the very small ones who don't have a lot of support end up kind of like fading out into the ether.
Mm-hmm. I feel like also like conventions are charging more and more and more for badges. And here's my whole thing with that too. Conventions are expensive to run. If you enjoy a convention and you think that they have valuable programming and they are delivering good content to you as an attendee, buy a badge and support the convention. However, the number of conventions that exist that are not delivering quality programming, that are nothing more than a room with tables set up for autographs and some vendors selling stuff airship from China, um and don't even provide basic necessities like water coolers, ADA access,
Mm-hmm.
and like air conditioning. Those are the conventions that I'm like, no, you're charging 80, 90, $100 for a badge, and you're not even providing the basic necessities for your attendees, let alone actually any valuable programming. I'm like, no. And there are so many cons that do that. And it's like, for me, and probably similarly for you, my biggest draw to conventions is friends. I go for friends and to see my friends and to cosplay with my friends and have fun wearing costumes from fandoms that we share and getting photos and just spending time with them. I'm not going because I have to see, oh, there's a voice actor from this anime that I have to see and I need to go buy a badge and I need to stand in line to meet an autograph. No, 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 no. That's not the gig for me. Like, I'm not doing all that. So
Mm-hmm.
like, why? It's like, it's very much like there's a balance for me of like, I want to support the conventions that I feel like really are doing their best and are putting in the effort, and it's visible. You can see the effort they're trying to deliver. I am not about the conventions that are like doing the least, and especially not about the conventions that treat the cosplay community or the cosplay guests in a way that's just so unbecoming, because that happens a lot too.
Yeah, it's so different, the cosplay scene now and conventions as they are now versus new ones pop up. Like it's a lot of things have changed, and it's kind of nuts and crazy, especially because it's like I do attend cons in a similar fashion that you do, where it's not for the programming, it's not for the celebs, it's for my friends, because this is a time where we can all kind of like converge in one spot at the same time at like on agreed day and time and place. So it's like that's pretty much the only reason I go to cons anymore, if at all, which is to see my friends, because it's
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, lives are hectic, schedules are crazy. Trying to schedule things en masse with other people outside of that is difficult, but like for a con and everyone amassing there, it kind of works out. But it's like you got to make sure that the money that cons charge you for, it's got to like be worth it. It can't be a quick cash grab, or low quality like convention center, or like just tables, as you said. Like it's just not it's just
Mhm.
not the same. It's not worth it sometimes.
Well, yeah, and then also there's like for us as cosplayers, there's the spectrum of conventions that really do see cosplay as an integral part of the convention experience, and cosplayers as artists, which they are. If you're making a costume, you're using so many different artistic skills and experience that you've accumulated to make these costumes, right? And so there some cons value cosplay guests and cosplayers as actual, like they're providing programming, they're providing value and entertainment to the convention, they're providing us services. And if we're asking cosplayers to be guests at our convention, we need to actually treat them like guests and not like volunteers, because it's not the same thing. Um, but like there are also conventions that are the complete opposite, where they're like, oh, well, you're just putting on a wig and some garment that you got from somewhere. Why should we take you seriously? And oh, we technically need to have a costume contest so we can list that as one of the things on our website that we technically have at our convention, but we're not actually going to implement any type of rules that make sense. We're not going to actually implement any type of structure or rigor or fairness. We're not going to have a diverse panel of judges with experiences and backgrounds. We're just going to like throw this shit together, label it as a cosplay contest, and then move on with our lives and collect the bag, because we don't actually want to do anything with this community. It's like
Hmm.
so wild, the differences, and it's so apparent depending on what con you go to.
Yeah, because it's just like, again, the things that you share about what that cons are doing nowadays, it's just, I don't, either I just don't see it or it's not happening as much like up in the Midwest. So it's just crazy. It's crazy.
Well, and oh, there's one more thing too on this note though. It's that there's a convention happening in my god, New Orleans, Louisiana, called
Mhm.
WasabiCon,
Okay.
and they have like cosplay contest rules on their website that are kind of hard to find. This convention's happening literally this weekend, as in like tomorrow, but the rules were hard to find. And well, tomorrow as of recording this, I don't know when this podcast is going out, but it's happening like May 10th or 11th. um the rules for this cosplay contest, they were like, one, you have to show up for prejudging, but your handler cannot come with you to prejudging. You can't have anyone with you unless you're a minor. That's the only reason. Or maybe if you have a disability, but no one else.
Hmm.
Two, after we prejudge you, we will tell you if you're good enough to be in the contest.
What?
Yes. Three, your handlers also cannot come backstage with you to like the green room or anything before the contest starts. You have to be there by yourself. You can't have any of your you can't have someone there to help you with your costume. You have to be by yourself.
That's
Um
that's nuts.
Something
That's
else I think,
crazy.
oh, I know. Something else on there also said something along the lines of like we can change the rules at any time that we want at any given point. But yeah, I was like looking at, and it was literally like maybe like three sentences that had this and no other content or explanation about the contest at all. It was just that. And I was sitting there laughing like, oh my god, who is going to enter this contest, and like what's this even going to be? It's just a mess.
I Those are some. Okay, granted, I've only ever competed once in my life, and it was so low stakes. I didn't even fucking win, but that's besides the point. That's besides the point. Hearing those rules you listed out, I know for a fact you're just bunk, and it's like, especially the no handler rule. Like, what if you have an insane ball gown that has, electronics and LEDs and things moving on you, that you need to make sure that like
Literally
someone
anything.
else can, like no handler? That's insane to me. That's crazy. Especially like
And I don't
backstage.
know.
I don't
Yeah, I don't know if this is just because I'm more ingrained in the cosplay community now than I was maybe 5 or 8 years ago, but
Mhm.
I feel like I keep seeing more and more and more of these types of things happening. And that's why I don't know if we're literally in a dark age of conventions or if like it just is happenstance because I am more aware of these things going on. I really can't tell. But I feel like conventions as a whole, the overall perception I have is that there are just so many more conventions now than there were previously, but so many more conventions now are also doing so many things that are just inadequate in terms of like the way that they run and manage themselves.
Yeah, I feel I feel cons nowadays are about quantity and not quality, which is why it's like you have your short like 5 or 6 lists of like cons that stand the test of time because they figured their stuff out, and I have my short list of like cons that have withstood the test of time because it's like if you're just here for a quick cash grab and everything's, bad, low quality, not well thought out, it's not gonna last very well. So it's just like the
Yeah.
the dip in con quality is definitely something that I've been noticing, especially when you come into interaction with these things, because you are my eyes into that part of the cosplay community. You are my morning
Look,
tea.
I'm not gonna say it's entertaining sometimes. It's kind of a point where I have to laugh at it or else I'll cry. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you kind of have to
It's
make
disappointing.
situations. Yeah, you have to make disappointing situations almost. I always spin it into more of a comedic. Maybe it's my way to cope with these things. I don't know, but I'm always just kind of like, you have to take it with a little, you can't take it too seriously. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're impacted by it, there are serious things that happen if you're directly involved, but at the same time, it's not everything has to be so serious. And when you see these things happening, all you can do is just kind of like stay away, be like, oh, mental note taken, don't need to go there ever again or ever in my
Hmm.
life. Okay, moving on to the end of the episode with the guest question. It's a pretty easy question, so it won't be too long, but the question is, it's kind of funny. This
Oh no.
question's kind of funny
Oh no.
given that you've kind of like transitioned into like being a Rennie, as you called it. But we're gonna talk about it anyway. So, what is your advice for longevity in cosplay? I've been cosplaying for only a few years now, and I honestly have no clue what I'll be doing in 5, 10 years, and if I'll still be interested in cosplaying or not. How have you kept engaged in cosplay? And what keeps your drive to continue? I know improving your craft takes time and hours invested, but I'm curious how you would stay motivated to continue cosplaying.
Aw.
So,
Yeah. First of all, thank you for that
go.
question. I think that's super duper. I That's a really great question, and I think it's really really sweet. That I get to answer it. Because it's something that I feel very strongly about, especially having been in the cosplay community for as long as I have. Maintaining the longevity of cosplay and like maintaining that interest, I have come to understand, at least for me specifically, is that I am picky and selective with who I cosplay with in terms of like groups or collaborative projects with, because I'm too old. I don't got time to deal with that petty middle school, high school drama. I don't got time for that. But like picking projects truly that you are passionate about, I feel is so important, because back like as a younger cosplayer, it was just kind of like, oh, this is the big show, let's all cosplay from this, or like, hey, everyone's
Yeah.
cosplaying this is trending, let's all cosplay it. When, you know, everyone cosplays for their own reason. For me, I was a lot of like, I'll cosplay to fill, I'll cosplay because this is trending. But ultimately, what kind of maintained my creativity and saving myself from burnout or coming back from burnout was having those passion projects that I feel very strongly about, that I care about a lot. Because if you just keep like making costume after costume after costume, you run yourself risk of burning out by just constantly overworking yourself, setting these expectations that like I gotta get it done by this time, and you're just forever in like a mode of like con crunch, kind of, as the podcast name suggests. So I like, some of my advice is like, focus more on like projects that you're really passionate about. Take your time with it, put your heart and soul into it, and make sure that you are happy and content with it. Surround yourself with cosplayers that share a space for you and hold a space for you, but also are happy to collaborate with you and you collaborate with them. Because like really like, what's really important to me in cosplay is a lot of things, but like having projects that I'm passionate about, but also having people that support me but have the same interests as me. I don't cosplay as often as I used to back in the day when I would go to a con like once or twice a year and have like a full lineup, AM, PM, all that jazz. Now it's just, what is a small project that I can pour my heart and soul and time into? Because I want this to be perfect, because growing up con crunching all the time, I was never satisfied with what I made because I had to rush it. So just
Mm.
focusing on something that you are really loved and are really passionate about, surrounding yourself with people who are adults and can cosplay with you. Don't be afraid of doubles. Doubles are
Oh my
completely
god.
safe. They're fine. If you are around people that say you can't cosplay Rapunzel because I'm cosplaying Rapunzel, you don't need them. You don't need them. Get rid of them because they feel threatened that you might be a better Rapunzel than them. You don't need them. Doubles are fine. We are adults in this house. Doubles are okay. They are welcome. They're more fun. It's okay.
It's so funny that there's so much passion and fire behind that specifically, because that could be its whole own topic. It's
It can be
just
its
the
whole own
double
topic.
situation.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, like to summarize, passion projects, take your time, don't rush, collaborate and surround yourself with people that are good in your space and you're good in theirs as well. And don't be afraid to like experiment and just constantly like try new things, especially if you're trying a new craft for the first time. Practice makes perfect. It's even if you mess up once or twice, that's still learning how not to do it. So always like I'll also like be forgiving of yourself too as you're like navigating cosplay and like developing new crafts. I can go on forever about this, but passion projects, good people, doubles are okay, they're safe, welcome, and fine. And just go at your pace. Go at your pace and listen to your body. And if you feel like you're pushing yourself too hard, take a break. Take a break. And
I think
truly,
those are all. Okay, finish. They're all truly what?
truly, cosplay is a marathon. It's not a race. Much like life, it's a marathon, not a race. Take your time. Take your time. Enjoy it. Have fun. Cosplay is meant to be fun, and as long as you're having fun with the people that you're doing it with, then you're having a good time.
No, that summarizes it perfectly. And I think that in my head, the biggest thing that I've seen is that one, have some core friends that are your good Judies that will be there through your life, right? There's like everyone has seasons to their life and your priorities change and your interests change and your fandoms change. But I think that for me personally, I've had some friends that have been there throughout almost my whole cosplay journey, and they have made me a better cosplayer, but have also kept me engaged in a lot of different ways. And so I think having a few core friends that are really some of your best friends, that can be really helpful to stay engaged in the cosplay community and to keep wanting to make new things. And I think the second thing for me is um, I have realized, and I said this before on the podcast, I think, but picking characters based off of a design alone will more likely than not lead you to not wanting to continue to finish making the costume or even putting the costume together and wearing it. I think that, and I'll ask multiple people I've talked about this, but I think that characters that you personally resonate with and the characters in which you like are so engaged with their story, their background, their writing, their and then their design is obviously part of it, because even if you like a character and you like all about them but you think they're wearing a horrible like ugly ass burlap sack, you're not going to want to make that. But in general, I think you have to have you have to have a strong connection to the source material and to the character to want to see a project through to the end.
Absolutely.
I know that there are some people that they'll make costumes purely based on aesthetics, and they do make the costumes, and that's totally valid and fine, and like anyone should be able to do that if they want to. But I think that a lot of times when people operate like that, and they lose interest in making the costume, and that they end up throwing it to the wayside, and the repeated cycle of that will just lead to disappointment, and then you'll probably not want to keep cosplaying. So I would say aesthetics are fine, especially, I mean, picking off aesthetics is fine, especially if you're just buying the costume, because then you can just like literally press a button, have it shipped to your house, and
For
like
sure.
maybe do a few alterations. But like in general, if you're investing time, energy, resources, and experience into something, you should really have a bigger motivation to finishing that project than just the pure I want to, like, I like it, think it's pretty, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely, absolutely.
um
I am absolutely there and supporting your points as well because those are very, very good points. I'm really glad that you brought those up. Absolutely.
uh okay, well, we've gone so far over. I'm gonna wrap this up, and then I'm gonna come to you at the end to tell us where we can find you and your business and everything. So um Thank you for joining another episode of the Cosplay Crunch. If you would like to ask a question to one of our amazingly talented guests, please email us. Oh my God, please email us. Jesus. At the cosplay. Oh my God. Take two. I'm not going to edit this out, but we're doing a take two. Yeah. If you want to ask us a goddamn question and you want your voice heard, email us at cosplaycrunchpod@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at cosplaycrunchpodcast for the latest podcast news and announcements, as well as on cosplaycrunch.com and on YouTube at the Cosplay Crunch Podcast if you want to see a visual format. Also rate us. We're getting more ratings. It's super exciting. You can rate us on mobile, and also on Spotify you can set a little bell notification. That way you can get alerted when new episodes go out if you want that. That way you remember to listen. And Sarah Feelsbender, do you have any parting words for our listeners, and where can they find you all over the internet?
Yes. So, again, thank you again for having me. I'm Sarah, also more known as Feelsbender. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter under Feelsbender, and you can also find my website. Currently there's no stock right now, but there will be soon, hopefully. Piecesofparhelia.com. And some last parting words are just find your passion and your creativity and fuel it with things that make you happy. Life is too short to be stuck in something that you don't want to do or that you aren't going to be happy with long term. So follow your passion and fuel it with whatever it is that'll make you happy so that you can always revitalize that creativity to keep going and keep creating and making new things.
Oh my God, that's so inspiring. I thought you were going to say like sign up for 30 D&D campaigns and then you'll have your best life ever.
No, don't be me. Don't be me. Don't be me. I'm doing it so you don't have to.
Well, and on that note, don't be me. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, we will see you on the next episode. Goodbye.
Bye, thank you.
The Cosplay Crunch podcast is hosted by Savage Cosplay, with post-production also by Savage Cosplay. Original theme music by Katie Fairbanks. Logo and graphic design by Owl and Coffee.